we have no real media in this state. Well, you have us.
It's really time for a parent revolution.
Never let a good crisis go to waste. That's what the left did with COVID in so many different ways.
Wind energy, especially offshore wind, is a big loser and just another government boondoggle.
Like, what's going on?
People are fed up. They lied to us then. They're lying to us now. They're assaulting our families.
What we do is we look at the lies of the left that they keep pushing out, that America doesn't work for black people. That is not true.
They want to now monopolize truth and say, truth is only what we say truth is. Damn the data, damn the science.
The key with science is it always needs to serve objective thinking. They just call anyone who challenges them a science deniers.
They're evil.
Shut up or we'll cancel you.
What we're going through is a cultural revolution.
This is big, and this is how change begins.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Ocean State Current Command Bunker. Now playing from In the Dugout, number 37, Mike Stenhouse.
What if everything we knew and know, or think we know about America's health is wrong? What if hidden in plain sight in all these beautiful gold star standard studies and all kinds of government data was a shocking truth? What if we come to realize, as our guest is going to tell you here, Michael Menard, that childhood trauma will eventually lead to problem after problem into adulthood even, and is responsible for over 1,400 Americans dying every single day, more than tobacco, more than cancer, more than heart attacks, accidents, or even stroke. Our author claims the science is irrefutable. For example, that 90% of teen suicide attempts can be traced back to people with severe adverse childhood experiences. And think of the money we're spending on treating kids with trauma. And think of the money we're spending on treating adults with all kinds of diseases and conditions that I think our author is going to tell you probably could have been avoided if they didn't have these traumas. And then, even more, he says the church and faith could be the answer to all of this. Hey, folks. Welcome to In the Dugout, your host, Mike Stenhouse here. Michael Menard will be my guest in just a second. He says we've been counting the bodies wrong. When someone dies, I'm quoting from his release, when someone dies of a heart attack, it can be traced to severe childhood trauma. When they die at 55 instead of 75. Instead, it's recorded as heart disease, not childhood trauma. When they overdose, it's recorded as addiction, not childhood trauma. When they take their own life, it's recorded as a suicide, not childhood trauma. He says we've been counting the bodies wrong, but he's saying there's hope. If we allow faith-based and proper counseling, that these childhood traumas do not need to lead to these deadly problems that most will experience at some point later in their life. Wow. Okay. This is going to be, I think, a very interesting interview. So without further ado, let's meet a very special guest and author whose book you'll hear about right now. So as I mentioned in my open, this is a discussion I'm really looking forward to. It's an issue we've covered extensively. And so we welcome for the first time a rookie to In the Dugout, Mike Menard. Mike, welcome to In the Dugout.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Mike.
You're coming to us from business trip in Santa Barbara, California. Thus the palm trees in the background. It's beautiful. Yep. What's your cap? You're playing ball with us too. You put a cap on today.
It's the victory team. It's actually Viore, but I have a V for victory.
V for victory. Viore. I'm not much on fashion, but I think that's a clothing brand or something.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, my wife tries to get me into fashion, but I pretty much resist. Anyway, all right. So, look, your background. Let's first tell people about your background with as an engineer. I mean, it's impressive. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Well, I'll start with my childhood because I assume we're gonna be diving into that subject
Yeah.
of children. Um, I'm one of 14 children. I'm the
Whoa.
second oldest, and had an awesome mother, but I had a father shaped by his own trauma. And so we grew up in a 900 square foot home at the below the poverty line. I reflected on my childhood as being wild, just wild, but I didn't think it was bad until at age 70, I wrote my first book, which is my memoir, The Kite That Couldn't Fly, and I told my story and the story of my siblings. And it exploded. It exploded because it exposed what disruption in childhood development does to us as adults. I lost two brothers to heroin because of their childhood trauma.
Two brothers. Wow.
Two brothers, yeah. And half of us have some type of disorder that I now know comes from childhood. So I also had a stellar, I out of necessity, I became a creator. I became a creator to survive. So what I experienced, the experts call post-traumatic growth. And it comes with its own disorders, but I had a very, I'm not a bragger, but I had a very successful corporate career. I have 232 patents, more than most people in the world.
I have one. I have one.
You? We're brothers. We're brothers. Like, what was it
Well,
for?
I had one. I had one.
You never lose it. You never lose it.
Well, yeah, but you lose your exclusive rights to it
That's
if you
all
don't
right.
keep paying the fee. Yeah, yeah.
It's like wearing an MVP ring. So I invented the products that I invented in 2025 produced $50 billion in revenue. So I invented disposable infant diapers. I invented sanitary napkins with wings, which
Wait a minute. No, stop.
Yeah, go ahead.
You invented disposable diapers?
Yes, yeah, 1969. I have the original patent. I had an idea.
Wait a minute. So all these moms throughout the world have you to thank?
Yes, they do. And I got
my first grandbaby coming in a few weeks, and I guess we're going to be. We're going to be paying you some royalties. I guess.
Yeah. So I was babysitting my youngest sibling, and he had diarrhea, and it was cloth diapers only then, and it was leaking all over me. So I had an idea to make a disposable out of paper towels, so I could wipe his bottom and just flush it away. And so I did it. I told my dad about it the next morning. He brought me to a patent lawyer, filed the patent, got the patent, sold the patent to Johnson & Johnson, and that birthed the product category of disposable absorbents.
And you ended up working there, becoming VP of Worldwide Engineering for them.
I did. And, when you treat somebody, Mike, like a guru, they treated me like I was a guru. I was just a regular guy. You treat somebody like a guru, you become a guru, right? So that they put researchers around me, had PhDs reporting to me, and I just spit out ideas, and those ideas turned into patents, and
wow.
I became famous. And then in the year 2000, I heard a voice on a Christian radio that said, "Don't go to your grave with your music still inside of you." So I quit. And I sat in my office in my bedroom for about 6 months trying to figure out what to do. And I founded a global software company called GenSight, and I'm still the CEO and founder of that organization. And because of that work and because of my history, I've had the opportunity to advise the United Nations, NASA, most of the major corporations around the world. And I have
on what topics?
Resource optimization. Imagine a company like Coca-Cola having 800 ideas, but they can only execute 30. Which 30 should you execute? So I developed an optimization algorithm to look at all possible combinations and spit out the answer. So the United Nations is using it for resource optimization.
Kind of like a Six Sigma for resource planning.
Exactly. I started with Six Sigma.
Okay.
I started with Six Sigma, and that's the mindset. That's the mindset.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so anyway, had this great childhood. Wild childhood. I wrote this book, The Kite That Couldn't Fly. The stories, Mike. You send me your mailing address. I'll ship you these books. But it's 26 stories of childhood, and at the end of each story, a therapist writes a reflection on what really happened to the child in that episode, so parents can learn from it. And
the root cause, I'm sure, right?
Root cause. Well, that started the real journey. So the reaction to that book started me on a journey, and that was about 3 years ago, to get to the bottom of what is this thing and why is the world breaking my door down. And I had psychiatrists. I've now partnered with the number one therapist and PhD for childhood trauma recovery. His name is Dr. Schiraldi, and he wrote the foreword. He did a beautiful job and wrote the foreword to my latest book, which is why I'm talking to you. It's Greater Than Gravity: How Childhood Trauma is Pulling Down Humanity. So I got these experts who are lifting me up and telling me that we have to bring this monster down, and they think I'm the guy to do it. So I went on this journey. I did I consumed 350 research reports. I interviewed over 1,000 professionals and sufferers of childhood trauma. And I wrote this book, Greater Than Gravity: How Childhood Trauma is Pulling Down Humanity, because it really is, Mike. I mean, when you hear the stats, it's going to make your head spin. And so now I've created an organization called UACT, UACT, United Against Childhood Trauma. And I'm bringing people like you into this organization with the goal to end childhood trauma. And I know that sounds maybe even ridiculous, but it's not ridiculous, because it's really about who you and I become in this journey. And if you're aware of this evil, any evil that we're aware of that we do not attack,
right,
we're complicit.
Yeah, evil exists only if good men stay silent. Exactly. Good men and women stay silent.
Perfect. So I have this burden on my shoulders from what I've learned, which is I want to give you the bullet points, kind of the headlines of what I learned, because it will blow you.
So just to be clear, you learned this from talking to top-notch psychologists. You learned this from studying studies, peer-reviewed, gold star studies, right?
Yes. Yep. Okay. And the we all have gifts, Mike. You're using your gifts for good. My gift, my God-given gift, is a brain that's different. And it's always been different. And maybe it was developed out of survival. I don't know. But I have a brain that connects dots that people never connect. And I see things before other people see them. And that has led to this massive amount of inventions, because I see a problem. Every insight, every aha begins with a problem. And my brain consumes data and makes connections. I have like an AI brain that makes connections that no one's made before, and then I go to work proving them.
Yeah, I got to jump in here. I have a little fun. I'm sorry, but my wife and I were musing the other night. You know the commercial, the most interesting guy in the world?
Yes.
You know, he calls it, and when I don't drink beer off him, when I do, I drink, what is it, Modelo, whatever it is.
Modelo, yeah.
And one of the lines was, he wants all of his teeth are wisdom teeth. So then my wife and I came up with a few lines. I said, what would we say about some? And I'm going to use it on you. You're so smart that AI searches out information from you.
Thank you. It's a compliment. Yeah, it's a compliment. So yeah, I in 2012, I wrote a book about my brain, and it's called A Fish in Your Ear. A Fish in Your Ear, and it's kind of a spoof, but it did great jobs for me in my corporate career because in a book, the Hitchhiker's Journey to the Galaxy or something, it was a book, a kind of a small group of people kind of off their rockers follow this concept. And in that book is a little fish called the babblefish. And the babblefish can speak every language, and the babblefish knows everything you want to know. So if you stick that fish in your ear, it will tell you what you need to hear. And so the thesis is, I'm that fish. I'm the fish in your ear. So
All right. So your background,
yeah, that's it.
unbelievable. All right. And then mix in with that background the personal tragedy you've suffered, your family, your brothers.
Yeah.
And so why did you want to attack this problem of childhood trauma?
Well,
obviously, the obvious reason is why, but how?
It started with taking pain and turning it into purpose. So I could not shake. I realized that if I knew back then what I know now, my brothers would still be alive. There's no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind.
Oh, does that haunt you?
It does, and it should, and it
should haunt all of us.
Yeah. It's and so I found out. I found out why. Why did they die? Why did they turn to heroin? And the picture is just crystal clear. So when I dove into the research, working with the CDC, the World Health Organization, the National Institute of Mental Health, the director, by the way, the director of the past director, he retired, he resigned about 2 years ago. He said to me that after 20 years and $20 billion in spending in research, we haven't moved the needle one bit on mental illness and recovery. All we do,
I believe it. I think we're making it worse. We'll get into that later.
No doubt. There's no doubt. So people were coming to me. So this guy, his name is Trent, got a hold of me and said, I need your help. And I said, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a mental health person. I'm just a guy. I cannot help you, but I can listen to you. I can listen. And we became instant friends. And at age 52, he turned suicidal. He attempted taking his life 3 times, and he didn't know why. Successful career, beautiful family, lost all of it, turned mentally ill in the middle of his life, and he didn't know why. Well, we got to the bottom of it very quickly. His mother started beating him with a spoon when he was 6 weeks old.
Yeah. So
because he was crying too much, and she confessed that as part of this journey. And so what happens, Mike, here's another huge headline, is that when a child's life is disrupted by even something as simple as too much screen time, to the things you've been talking about, if that is disrupted, the brain development changes. And it actually changes the circuitry. So let's talk about abuse. So if there's 10 types of abuse. Sure.
I want to come to the causes of trauma and what
let's get right
after.
to it.
I want to first talk about the premise of your book. Well, I'm sure, but what was publicized, because this is also something I'm really curious about as a Catholic myself, a man of great faith. You believe so while we want to obviously eliminate the root causes for people who are already suffering emotionally, you believe the church can play a role in some kind of emotional salvation, if you would. So I want to focus on that
Let's
part
go.
of your
Let's
book
go.
for now.
Let's
Then
go
we'll
there.
go back and
Let's
analyze
go there.
why we're here.
Because Mike, you're getting at the core. You're getting at the core of the issue. I'm a Christian. I was raised Catholic. I was raised at the cross. Okay. My mother taught me Jesus. She taught me what was right about Catholicism and what was wrong about Catholicism. Okay. Because every formal religion has its issues. So I was raised believing, asking you shall receive. I was raised believing in the healing power of Christ. But you know what? It doesn't work. And I'll get to it. Remember, I follow Jesus. I love the church. I love the church. But based on greater than gravity, and Mike, I'm 75 now, and I don't know how much time I have left. That's why I'm talking kind of fast, because my runway is running out, and I need to initiate the solution before I check out, right? So I've written a follow-up book that's coming in July that will be the book that solves this problem. And it's called Bleeding in the Pews. Bleeding in the Pews.
So that's coming next?
That's coming in July. Because what I learned is that there's a great debate amongst Christianity, and that is faith versus science. Faith versus science. And I have my oldest brother. When I was in the middle of writing Greater Than Gravity, he said, Mike, you know, I've had depression and anxiety my whole life. Do you think it was our childhood? I said, I know it was our childhood. And he said, you know, Mike, I've been on my knees. He's telling me, Mike, I've been on my knees for 50 years and I'm not getting any relief. And I've tried every drug. And so he got the best therapy for childhood trauma. And in 7 sessions, he was healed. 7 sessions. But prayer wasn't enough. And why? How do we even say those words? Well, 700 years before Christ came, Isaiah said, by his stripes we will be healed. That was a prophecy about the stripes on Christ's back. When he was crucified, Peter said,
those scars, right?
yes, by his stripes we are healed. So, Mike, the reality is it is done. It is done. But we as Christians still follow pagan practices of we got to do more, we got to pray more, we got to be better. That's not what Christ taught us. But let's get to the question of what's required for healing.
All right, so let me stop right there. I want to read one thing so our viewers understand why I'm asking you this, because in the information that was sent to me by your publicist, yes, you call the faith where is it? You called the faith community the most underutilized healing force to help address this issue of childhood trauma. So that's where we're going. That's where you're going. I just want to let people know where we're going.
But the church is absent, Mike. The church is absent, and my view is that not my view, my certain plan is to convert churches to be trauma responsive places of worship. Because the Bible said, if someone is ill, bring them to the elders and let the elders pray, but let the women apply the oil. Well, back then, olive oil, first press, was seen as medicinal. And it cleaned wounds. It solved stomach ulcers. It was the go-to. So even scripture talks about faith and means. But we've lost that. And when a person goes to the church, to the pastor, to the priest, and says, I've got anxiety, I've got addiction, I'm unfaithful to my wife, all the things that fall into the category of addiction, they're all addictions. What does the priest say? What does the minister say? Oh, I'll pray for you. Have you given yourself to the Lord? But here's the reality, Mike. Here's the punchline. God's grace heals us. The gospel heals us. But when you have a neurological wound, and trauma is a neurological wound, and wounds bleed, and it's not a memory, it's part of your physiology. It's part of your immune system. It's part of your brain cells. And that trauma destroys mitochondria in the brain, which makes everything go sideways. And we didn't know that. We didn't know that. And so when somebody is told, pray harder, do more, they're shamed again because they're not getting the relief. So the Lord has prepared people to heal us. And there are interventions that are quite efficacious, that are quite simple, that do no harm, that heal us. And we need to.
Let me. This is great because I'm confused a little bit.
Let me help.
Maybe my viewers are. So let's vet it out here. So, are you saying that just prayer, while that might be nice to appeal to the grace of God, that's not enough? That there's physiological. Is it counseling? Is it medicine? Is it treatment that has to accompany faith? Is that what you're saying? There's something more.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Fleshly, if you would, incarnate that has to happen. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly what I'm saying. And those things, they're a combination of what you said. And we need.
But yet you're saying they have to be kind of faith-based.
Well, here's the thing. Your world, Mike, is about creating thriving environments for everyone. It's about freedom and prosperity, right? Think of that as the ultimate happiness, the ultimate well-being. Trauma keeps us from that well-being. And you cannot reach, my view, you cannot reach the thriving part of the scale without Christ, without spirituality. You can't. You can be happy, you can be okay, but you're never going to be the best you can be. So you need these two things together. And who's best to do it? So the plan that I'm implementing as we speak is I've created an online academy where priests, ministers, volunteers, people like you, can become trauma responsive certified. Here's a huge difference, Mike. Trauma informed is the words we use. No one can define trauma informed. It means you know. I am setting a new standard for the world and for the professional world, and they're already adapting it. And it's a trauma. Let's live in a trauma responsive world, which means we're going to do, not know. We're going to close the gap between knowing and doing. And that's what trauma responsive is. So we're going to turn, you know what? The priests and the shepherds and the ministers, they're bleeding too. 70%.
Yeah, look at the problems we've had with many of them. And I'm sure it's all based on childhood trauma too, right?
Of course it is. And we need.
All right, so this is really deep shit. Excuse my French here, but
I love shit. So you can use it.
I didn't expect this. So wait a minute now. So hold on. So you're not asking priests to become psychologists.
Never. No, but they need to be the first line of they need to be first aid. So when someone comes, they will have been trained in the first level of healing that we can do for each other.
Like triage?
Triage is exactly right. And then the administrator, the priest or the minister or the school teacher or the social worker or the CPS worker will say, we need to get you this type of healing. And by the way, if you're a foster parent, you're going to be a certified foster parent or you don't get a child. You're going to be certified in trauma responsiveness, and you're going to heal the child, not just care for the child.
Are they going to heal them or set them on an appropriate path towards healing?
Set them on the path. They're not going to be healers. They're not going to be therapists. But there's things that you need to know. All
right, but then who are those healers then? Who are those caregivers then?
Oh, we're going to create an army of healers, and we're going to repurpose social workers, school counselors, CASA volunteers, leaders, you, Mike.
This is a massive undertaking.
You know what? It's like to date, anything we've done on this subject is like using a shovel against a tsunami.
All right, well, just let's use your book. Tell our viewers about the early why this topic is the early success of your book speaks for itself. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So this book, Greater Than Gravity, it's got 3 parts. The first part describes what childhood trauma is and the neurobiology of the child suffering and what.
Okay.
The second part says this is what happens in adulthood. These are the bombs that are planted in these children's brains, and this is what happens. And the third book is this is the solution. Will you join me? Will you join me in this crusade? Because we're gonna bring this monster down. So that book, I launched it. I'm nobody. I'm an independent author and an independent publisher. I have my own publishing company. So I'm a nobody. I don't have promotion. I don't have anything. I put the book out. I hit heavy with social media saying, if something isn't right, you owe it to yourself to find out. Get this book, read this book, give this book to somebody. It became Amazon's #1 bestseller in 2 days.
In 2 days.
It broke records and it's still breaking the records. And I just looked when you showed your that screenshot that that was March 19th. That's only 5-6 days ago. It's got now 35 reviews. You see them? All 5-star reviews, and they're all from powerhouses in the industry. And they're saying, finally, someone has given us hope for this, because, Mike, it's getting worse.
Well, yeah, we're going to get into that in a second, but it is. Okay. Wow. All right. So that speaks for itself. This is an issue. Everybody. All right. Can I give you 2 Rhode Island examples?
Please.
To comment on.
Please.
Case number 1. We have some volunteer lawyers in our organization who will, we're trying to raise funds and we're close to being able to hire lawyers who will take on pro bono clients who've been wronged by government policies. We have some volunteers. One of our clients we call Jane Doe. She's a mother from our West Warwick school district. That's all we've released personally. Her daughter was sexually abused at age 5 by a relative of the father. Okay. Scar for life, childhood trauma, right? No question about it. Okay.
The worst.
By 8th grade, after suggestions in various curricula in this, this woke curricula, maybe you're not the person you were born into. Maybe you're not a girl. Maybe you're not a boy. Maybe you don't like boys. Maybe you don't like girls. Maybe you shouldn't trust your parents. And eventually this girl decided that she really was a boy. So now we talk about triage. So the teacher and the school officials, instead of trying to put her on her path, obviously she's suffering from emotional trauma, but rather put her on a path of recovery. They put her on a path to confirm or affirm those delusions. Even the in-school mental health organization that our Rhode Island Department of Education set up, while it's available to all students, in this particular case, it was actually on the school grounds, I believe, or right next to them. They further encouraged her to go down this path. Until 2 years later, after pretending she's a boy in school and feeling like she's betraying herself by being a girl to her parents at home, unbeknownst to her parents, her pronouns, we don't know what physical stuff, chemical was done to her. We don't know. But 2 years later, in front of her mother and in front of her younger brother, she tried to commit suicide. And now this mother has been taken on a client, and we're suing the Rhode Island Department of Education to change their transgender policies. So let's take that case and tell me what, according to your prescription, what could have happened there, and how the outcome might have been very different.
Yep. So that's a heavy one, Mike. It's a very heavy one.
That's a deep one.
No, but let me just tell you a couple facts before I answer your question. Childhood trauma is now, it's published in Greater Than Gravity for the first time. I have irrefutable data that shows childhood trauma is the #1 cause of death in America today. It's the #1 cause of suicide, #1 cause of addiction, and #1 cause of incarceration. Okay, so it's huge. Now, what happened to that poor girl? When she was sexually harmed, it's like a glass case around her that protects children and protects women. It was broken. That covering was broken, and she was exposed to
Shattered. Yep.
all the illnesses in the world. And it shifted. It turned her thermostat, which controls cortisol. It turned it on, and it broke, and it stayed on. That's what happens.
5-year-old trauma.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything up until age 18, that type of trauma, that type of toxic evil turns the thermostat on. And when cortisol flows through a child's body, it destroys their decision center. It certainly destroys their sexual identity. We don't know why yet, but it makes everything go sideways as it relates to sexual preference, same-sex attraction, gender ideology. It changes it all. That's why, and I can say it, that's why the youth that are, destroying themselves and others through gun violence and school shootings, Mike, they're all suffering from neurobiological wounds. They're not bad people. So that girl didn't know what to do, and her parents didn't know what to do. But imagine a world when a child is...
Well, her parents, in this case, weren't informed. They didn't know anything.
So they were, it's just horrible. So they didn't exert the trauma, but the system around them didn't know what to do. And this woke ideology, I could go on forever and ever and ever. It's a destructive force. Yeah. It's an ignorant, destructive force. To have a child think that they can change their sex and be a different gender is doing such harm that I hope you have bulldogs as lawyers and bring that thing right to the light of America. So what could have happened?
Sorry. So let's pretend instead of being sent to this woke mental health counseling fraud of an organization, they instead went to a priest who would have been trained the way you would want them to train. Play that game, plan that out for me.
So the first thing, they would get a playbook. They would get a playbook to say, just like if you get if you get cancer of the brain, there's a playbook. There's a playbook of what to do, right? So there'd be a playbook that first says the first thing this child needs until they are about age 21, 22 is overdose of love. They need to feel love in a very different way. They need to feel safe, right? Because what's happened is their brain is now on hypervigilance, and there are techniques that can shut down the cortisol flow through mindfulness practices that most people think are woo-woo, right? Art therapy calms the mind. Music therapy calms the mind. Prayer.
Pets, dogs?
Pets, dog, prayer. And most, it sounds crazy, but lifestyle things like protein-rich diet, movement, and sleep. Because if you don't get enough sleep, what does that do? It increases cortisol, and it makes everything worse. So at some point, whenever the child is mature enough, and they certainly need intensive therapy. The child needs intensive therapy. But
all right, so let's go through the process. So they would have gone to a priest who would have said what to her?
The priest would say, "We are with you." To the parents and the child, we are with you. We're with you. We're going to be walking alongside you, and we're going to call on the mercy and the grace of God to use all of the tools we know. And the child's going to feel loved, and the child's going to feel God's love. And he's going to say, here's what we're going to do. And they talk to the parents separately, obviously. Here's the at-home routine. First of all, here's what happened to your child. And here's what's going to happen to your child and adult if we don't mitigate. Your child are going to have these desires, these things. They will turn to addiction. They will try to end their life without intervention. And here's what we're going to do to prevent it.
All right, before we go on, hold that thought. Hold it. I got to jump in because you just dispelled the myth of this transgender cult. Because you know what they say to parents. If you don't affirm your child's delusions, would you rather have, in this case, would you rather have a transgender, I don't even know how you say it, transgender man who's really a girl as a child, or would you rather have a dead child who commits suicide if you don't go along with their delusions?
Yeah.
You're saying the opposite. You're saying if we allow them to go on, their life has a high risk of having big problems in the future.
The science proves it. The science proves it. Right? There's history after history, data after data that says there should be a special place in hell for those people who say those are the only two choices.
Exactly.
Because the choice is we're going to reach full healing and have you live in a world where you thrive.
All right, go back to the priest. Go back to the priest. Sorry for that.
The priest says, I understand. I'm certified in trauma responsiveness. I believe that God has created healing interventions for us. And it sits along faith and prayer. But we need more. Mike, what if you go to the priest with a broken arm? What's he going to do? Is he going to send you to the hospital to have that bone set, or is he going to put a Band-Aid on the bone? Right? I've seen miracles, Mike. I hope you have too, but they're few and far between. And you need clinicians to heal. And so I am going to offer to certify therapists, and the priority goes to Christian therapists, but we have to heal the secular world as well, right? And you're going to have a classification, trauma responsive clinician.
So first we'll have priests or church people certified to be sort of triage people and initial care, and then you'll have another level of certification for actual mental health professionals.
Yes, and they'll be the priest and the ministers will be conduits to the healing. They're not the ambulance.
Okay, and they'll be just like you said, walking alongside with you.
And there'll be people in the church. There's all kinds of good people who love Jesus.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a priest. Could it be a lay person involved with the church?
We can train coaches.
Yeah.
Coaches that walk you there. They don't have to have a PhD or a master's, but they have a heart. They love Jesus, and they are trained in the neurobiology and the healing paths. And they will say, hold my hand, follow me. We're going to get you to wholeness.
Would I be correct in saying your vision would be for every church in America to have certified staff?
Yes.
Who can initially triage and provide guidance to troubled youth and adults?
More so.
And adults,
actually.
And then direct them to aligned, certified mental health professionals and then stay with them through the process.
Yes. And
wow.
Yes, that's exactly it. And there's 350,000 churches in America. My goal is that every church will seek to have the banner over their door that says, welcome, we are a trauma responsive place of worship.
Right. Now I want to go to Rhode Island case scenario number 2.
Okay.
Do you know that in Rhode Island, we can't do what you just said? That would not be legal. It's banned. Rhode Island in 2017, at the beginning of this whole transgender cult indoctrination thing, whatever you want to call it, agenda.
Sickness.
Yeah. We passed a law that banned, with the only exception, religious people, banned mental health professionals from providing any level of counseling that might not fully affirm a child's sexual, gender, or other related delusions. They call it conversion therapy. You probably heard the term. So basically, conversion therapy is banned by anyone other than priests. So while we might allow you to give a certification in our state, Rhode Island, to a priest to do the initial, there would be no one else for them to send that client to, that patient to afterward, because that would be banned. What do you say to that?
Oh my God. So
Is that evil?
First thing I would say is, Mike, I know you love your state, but you and everyone you love should move out of that state. How can you live in a state? I mean, first of all, I know you don't want to leave. So raise your voice, make the world realize how evil this is and how destructive it is to our children. Yeah, it's just criminal.
All right. Now, for your information and our viewers, there are about 20 other states that have this law as well. We're not alone.
Yeah.
That's how pervasive this has become, and perverse. But a Colorado mental health professional sued years ago. The oral arguments were heard in October by the United States Supreme Court, and they will be ruling within the next 2 to 3 months as to whether or not these laws are constitutional or not, and whether or not they should be struck down or not.
Yeah.
So there is some hope there. And with recent rulings from the United States Supreme Court, I think people who believe like we do are pretty hopeful that those laws will be struck down. But anyway, I mean, it's the worst possible thing. According to your research, it could happen, right?
All I can say is, I'm just speechless at that type of mindset and the destruction that it's causing our children. And, it makes me sad. No wonder, Mike, there's this mass exodus. I'm now in the state of California on business. I live in Tennessee. Over 50% of my neighbors in the 300 homes where I live are from California, who escaped this ideology so that they could raise their children in a free state. And
people don't just leave states because of high taxes. They leave because of culture and education and indoctrination. Yep.
Absolutely. And we're seeing a shift. We can call it blue and red states. We're seeing a shift, and that nonsense will ultimately bankrupt those states.
Yeah, I agree. All right.
The people with money will leave. The ones who won't will stay, and they're the ones not paying taxes. So it will fall apart. You'll see it begin to crumble.
I'm not out of breath, but I'm like mentally, this is so important and deep. I want, before we get to root causes of child trauma,
right,
I want to go back to the church. I have been openly critical of the Catholic Church, and I would say of all churches in our state and across the country.
Yep.
You see them as a potential source and path for healing.
I see them as a channel.
Yep. I am stunned. I am speechless that churches, the Catholic Church in particular, since that's mine and yours, is not speaking out about this mutilation emotionally, physically, chemically, surgically of children.
Yeah,
they speak out against abortion.
Yeah.
I think this is worse.
There's no doubt it's worse. There's no, Mike.
And yet silence. Do you agree? Silence
is
from the church.
It's worse than silence. It's worse than silence. It is covert resistance to the truth. And Mike, there's
God's truth.
God's truth. There's 50 million children in America. Well, there's 78 million in America, but 50 million of our children will experience childhood trauma before their 18th birthday. There's 180 million adults walking around who have experienced some form of childhood trauma that are hurting because of it. Right? 1,401 people die every day as a direct result of childhood trauma. That girl that you talked about in case study 1, she's one of those statistics. My brothers are those statistics. And now I've used epidemiology science, just the same science that was used to prove tobacco use causes cancer.
Yep.
I use that same methodology to show childhood trauma causes death. And we're counting the bodies all wrong, Mike. On the death certificate of that girl, it's going to say suicide.
Hopefully not. She's still alive, but hopefully not.
She attempted. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
she
sorry.
attempted suicide.
Amen.
Yep.
Amen. Thank you. But if it, a person who does die, and I know so many of them, the birth certificate is wrong. It should say childhood trauma killed that child.
We're going to get to that in a second. I agree, because I mentioned some of those stats in my open. But I want to finish one more thought on the church before we come back and look at the root causes or what is childhood trauma. Given the church's, what I call silence, given what you say is worse, covert endorsement of this radical agenda, do you think churches, let's just stick with the Catholic Church, do you think the Catholic Church would allow its priests or its staff or layperson to become certified in the way you're suggesting?
I hate to say it, but I just have to be honest with my beliefs. Is that I am one guy with a very small team, and we are triaging, we are prioritizing. I'm using my own software, my GenSight software, to prioritize where we can make the biggest impact with the resources we have, right? Resource optimization.
Right.
My system says, get to the Catholic Church last, because they won't listen. They won't listen. Get to the Baptists.
Okay.
Get to the people who believe in the Bible. Get to the people who believe in, who are truly wanting to save souls. The Catholic Church doesn't know how to save souls, Mike. I'm sorry. We have to find that out on our own. They think you have to go to a priest to get to God. They want that. They encourage that. Those are Pharisees. This is awful, awful, awful.
It's so. I don't know if I think I've said this once or twice publicly, but my faith has evolved so much in the last 4 years. My faith in Christ and the Bible and my knowledge is so much more advanced, and I spend so much more time in that. But at the same time, I've said to myself, like you, but at the same time, my actual church practice is dramatically lower.
Yeah. Yep.
Faith versus church are different things. They're different things, I believe.
Very different. And doctrine, there's lots of beautiful things about the Catholic Church. It was the first church. My mother died 15 years ago. She was 83. She was the closest woman to God that I've ever met. And within hours of her passing, she asked me a favor. I had to say yes, but my heart wasn't in it, but I had to say yes. And she said, Michael, just do me one favor. Promise me you will save the Catholic Church. Me, one guy. And I said,
you're talking about a burden.
I said, Mom, I will. She said, the Lord gave you the mind to do it. The Lord gave you the gifts to do it. It's your time. She quoted Ruth, for such a time as this.
Was this part of your inspiration?
Yes. Of course.
Holy Michael, that's
so
that's insane.
I don't have any delusions my ability to save the Catholic Church. Can I influence it? Absolutely. Can I get to the right cardinal? Absolutely. Can I start a movement? And you know what? This is not about tearing the church down.
Hey, look, I and we want to be part of this movement somehow. We'll talk about that off.
I think we'll find a way. We'll find a way. And here's the thing: back to the reaction of the book. The world, I have to turn off my email. I have to turn off my phone because people are finding me. I don't know how they're doing it. Honestly, I don't know how they do it. I give them my email address and my website, but they're finding me. And I'm talking about heads of state, but in other countries, other countries, the U.S. is not reaching out. I've got a government official in Scotland who reports to the Prime Minister, who has said we need to make Scotland the first trauma responsive country. Are you ready?
Beautiful.
Would you come here? Would you come here?
So let me ask you this, and I don't ask this with any cynicism.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I ask this seriously. Are you a prophet? Is this being channeled to you
Oh
from
no.
God?
Oh no. No, no, no. Hey, I know one thing
Wait,
for
but
sure.
why not? Why not?
I know one thing for sure. God moves us to where we need to be when we need to be there. And that's why you're sitting in the dugout. That's why you're talking to me. We are human. I am human. I know angels. I've heard angels talk to me. I've seen them. And when I got on my knees, I had a guy ask to fly in and see me before I launched the book, Greater Than Gravity. He said, I want to have a world-changing dinner. I want to take you to dinner. He flew in to Nashville, took me to dinner. I had to listen. And he says, I have an organization called RUN, R-U-N, Reaching Unreachable Nations. I've got 3 million missionaries across China, Africa, Asia, and Middle East. And we have rescued 630,000 children that were trafficked, and we have them in church homes, Christian church homes. And these are Muslim, these are, they're not Christians. But they're bringing these children. And he says, you've got to help us heal those children. You're a technology guy. We can't get therapists into those places, but we have internet. And we need to bring that therapy and that healing to this. And we know that prayer is not enough. So will you join me? And I said, no, I'm an engineer. I can't. He says, would you get down on your knees with me right now? Would you get down on your knees with me right now and pray and hear what God has to say? I said, yes. And we prayed. And then we waited. And I was praying, Lord, this is too many. How many people are there? 630,000. How many in America? How many around? And God said to me, Michael, how can it be too many? Those are my children. So I dropped the mic.
This is exactly what happened to Jesus. When he was healing everybody.
I dropped the mic and I said to that minister, Eric Watt is his name. I said, Eric, I am not the guy. I am not prepared. I know nothing about theology. I know nothing about psychology yet. He said, the Lord doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And you've just been called. And I know that our God is the same God that opened the waters for Moses. He's going to open the waters for you. This is why you were put on earth. So,
and your mother then affirmed that.
My mother, trying to get me to be the next pope. It's wild. I say to my wife, I say to my family, I'm a shit, Mike. I'm a shit. I'm going to tell you, I'm a shit. I'm a slacker.
Okay.
I just want to sit on the beach. I'm lazy.
Okay.
I'm lazy, but God has a different plan. So, I'm ready. I'm ready to do it. I'm going to do this the rest of my life. And I only take people like you who I believe in, because I have to triage now.
You can too. Yeah.
And you're doing the same thing. And I'm saying, okay, who do I need to amplify? Who can I light up? Because we'll
talk about that off air, but
right.
Do you have just a few more minutes?
Sure. Yeah. Let me see.
I want to circle back to where you started, and I rudely interrupted and took you on the other path. Yeah. Let's talk about childhood trauma, what it is, what can cause it. We've talked now about how we can deal with it after the fact, but let's try to understand what it is, how it starts, what the different things are that can cause it. Obviously, in case number one here, this daughter Doe here was sexually abused at age 5. That's an obvious case of initial early childhood trauma. Go on, tell us what it is and what can cause it.
There's lots of trauma, Mike, and there's a spectrum that ranges from life's disappointment, not getting that bike you wanted, not getting that pair of Nikes, having your heart broken at 15 from the girl you thought you were going to spend the rest of your life with. You know the story. That's disappointment. That builds resilience. That's part of life.
That's not permanent scar causing trauma, is it?
So you said it exactly. Childhood trauma is something that leaves a mark and causes permanent damage. And there's 10 types. I'm not going to run through all 10. Go to my website, youactnow.com. UACTNOW.com, and the 10 types of trauma are listed there. And so are the starts of healing are listed there. And I'm just getting started. But anyway, it's the classic neglect. It can be emotional neglect. It could be physical neglect. So not having heat in the house is a physical neglect. Not having dinner, not having food is a physical neglect. Dismissing a child is emotional neglect. You have physical abuse. It can be mental, it can be physical, and it can be sexual. So I just talked about 5. And then you have dysfunction within the home. Parents that are fighting, that are taught always, it pushes the child into the survival mode. A parent that has died before the child was 18. A parent who has mental illness or addiction or has been incarcerated. So parental dysfunction, severe parental dysfunction, which is so prevalent in today's world. Those are the 10 types. And they're called ACEs, ACE, adverse childhood experiences. And if you're in the world of it, you will know what your ACE score is. Mine is 6. I've had 6 of those types of trauma. If you have 6 or more, you will die 24 years too soon on average, guaranteed.
And the research is clear.
It's more than clear. If you have 4 of those, which by the way is 30% of our population, you have a 11,000% increased probability of mental illness. You have a 4,000 increased probability of being an addict. And when you have mental illness, because of mitochondria being destroyed, your body creates channels of metabolic disease, heart disease, cancer, stroke, obesity. It all originates, all of this destruction originates in childhood. So there's 10 types. Yeah, there's 10 types. And what happens to the child is everything shifts in their body. Their immune system gets suppressed. Their hormonal system shifts. They lose brain energy because the mitochondria is dead. Your circuitry, the actual development of the parts of brain change, and it's measurable on MRIs. And
Wow.
you grow up coming into adulthood with time bombs inside you. You don't know if it's going to be anger, rage, addiction, suicide. You don't know. And that guy I told you about early on, he was beat as an infant. His name was Trent. He attempted suicide 3 times. He told me, Mike, this force is so evil that it pulls me to the ground. It's greater than gravity. And that's where I got the title for the book, and I dedicate the book to him.
Wow, I got it. Wow. So
he ended his life. I got to finish it. He ended his.
Go ahead. Go.
He ended his life 2 months ago.
No.
I had to write a retraction in the book before I published it. So I write an epilogue in that said, this is how severe this is. We had him in the best type of therapy. It was too late. We got to stop it when they're children. Here's the sewer upstream of this stream is broken and sewage is flowing right into the Rhode Island is spending more money on CPS than any other state. They're spending
on what? On what?
On Child Protective Services.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's amazing. But you know what they're doing? They're spending the money trying to take the poop out of the water. Why don't you go up and fix the pipe? Let's stop the poisoning. That is the ultimate. That's the ultimate in prevention, right?
All right. So let's get to the brass tacks here of another deep dive issue. So first of all, you're saying with the proper kind of faith-based counseling, even some of these level 6, 7, 8, there's hope.
Absolutely. There's
good.
Promise. There's the promise of healing, and it's very strong.
Okay, good. So and all of just a quick and all the physiological and neurological things you talked about. Not only did you pull that from looking at various studies, I think it's like 350 studies you analyzed, but even after your book and even as you talk now, that stuff has been reaffirmed by the medical and scientific community.
Totally, and I'm shocked. They're all coming to my side. I thought they were going to try to
knock you down. Yeah, because it wasn't their idea.
No, they're saying, "Oh my God," and they're embarrassed.
Yeah, they should be. It should be. All right. Just like the church should be. All right. So here, all kinds of different things can cause one of those. What do you call them? Childhood events? What are they called?
Adverse childhood experience.
ACEs. Okay.
ACE. Yep.
Good. All right. Let's go to case number 2. Daughter Doe. She already had a few of those experiences. Could sending her to a mental health, I think it's called Thunderbird in our case, sending her to this fraud of a mental health agency to reaffirm her delusions, does that in itself create another adverse childhood event?
It's probably worse than any of those. It's probably worse than any of those, right? Because it's saying that stuff didn't matter. We're not going to help you with that stuff. We're going to heap more shame and tragedy on your life and confuse you more.
All right. So that's one strike against current policy in our state, right?
Yep.
Another policy in our state.
Awful. It's just awful.
Have you heard of social and emotional learning?
Of course.
And you're probably familiar. Those include a lot of surveys, suggestive surveys, under the guise of surveys.
Yeah.
That suggest to children, groom, if you would, that maybe you're not the boy you were born to be, or the girl. Maybe you, as a girl, maybe you should like girls, not boys. Maybe you shouldn't trust your parents because they, think of the last argument you have with them. Maybe you should trust school officials instead. So would those suggestive kind of, and I'll use the more extreme word, grooming experiences potentially qualify as an ACE?
It is not official. My opinion is absolutely it should. Absolutely. And the intensity of that should be measured and included in your profile, right? But those, I'm not a preacher, Mike. I'm a sinner. I got to tell you, I'm a believer. But if you believe in Christ, you are compelled to believe in Satan. And that is the work of Satan. That is the destruction of a child. And you know what the Bible says, that he comes and roams the earth to devour us, to kill us, and that's exactly what's happening. So what more evil could happen than having destruction planted in a child's mind at the age of 5, and then have other evil forces amplify that and destroy the child even further? How much further away from Christ can you push a child? So it is, it's beyond, for me, it's just beyond comprehensive, beyond words. And, it's a wicked problem. You know what a wicked problem is? Have you know the definition of a wicked problem? It's a problem that is so complex. There is no solution. There is no solution. Foster care is one of those, but I'm not going to accept wicked problems. I'm going to solve wicked problems. I'm going to fix the sewer pipe, and I'm going to get people. I'm going to get an army of people that's going to go upstream, and we're going to fix that pipe, and we're going to march. And on childhood trauma awareness, we're all going to wear a T-shirt with our ACE score on it, and mine's going to be 6, and the pastor's going to have a 9.
So God bless you. We're going to wrap up.
I hope you have a 0.
Well, we're going to wrap up, but I still want to bring one more example in Rhode Island. And again, so along with SEL and DEI and woke, there's this also comprehensive sex education, which you're probably familiar with too. Again, my focus is, and in this, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 2nd graders, 4th graders, you've probably seen the pictures. We've showed them on this show. The actual detailed, almost pornographic pictures of children, of young people engaged in bisexual, homosexual activities, graphic as you can believe. For a 5-year-old, for an 8-year-old, it's not just grooming, it's age inappropriate. We've had psychologists on, they can't handle these thoughts. They're not old enough, their brain isn't. So that in itself, again, has to be one of these ACE events, right?
Of course it is. Of course it is. You know, the ultimate prevention of all this is making parents real parents, teaching parents about this and how destructive this is. And my organization will offer free online parenting modules just for education, not certification, to make a call to action to come back to who God made us as parents, because we've lost it, Mike. We've lost it so poorly.
It's so ungodly. It's so false. It's so evil. Yeah, the devil. Wow. All right, Mike.
Okay.
I'm astounded. Wrap it all up for us. I don't even know what to say. Wrap it all up for us.
So for all of you listening, think for a moment about what you've heard today. Forget about what the world is telling you. Think about yourself. Think about where you are. What is your level of wellness? Is there anything that's keeping you from what you should be? And my book, you know, all proceeds go to the nonprofit to solve this problem. Get that book, read that book, decide for yourself if you might need to walk on the path of healing, or you know someone who might, because it's 180 million adults, 50 million children. So join me to come on to this fight. Go to youactnow.com. It's in the back of the book. It's on my website, which is michaeljmenard.com. That's my author website. Click the button to join. No obligation. You'll get weekly updates on the movement and what you can do. And we're going to bring this monster down, and I'm not going to stop. Amen.
Well, we want you back.
Thank you.
We don't want to stop on this either.
Thank you. Yeah, awesome. And Mike, I got to tell you, you're the I don't know what to call you, host, interviewer. You're the best I've had, and I've had hundreds now. So you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. Most people they got their agenda and they won't let me talk. They shut me down. Thank you for listening, and God bless you, and keep on doing what you're doing.
This will not be the last our viewers and hear from you, Michael. If you'll come back
anytime, and we'll talk later. I got to jump now.
All right, I have to talk to you off air at some point. So can I text you?
You know how to reach me? Yeah, you know how to reach me. You got all my information.
Right. Yep. Thank you, Michael. God bless.
God bless you, Mike.
All right, folks. I've been doing this. He just gave me a compliment. The best interviewer. But this is the most consequential, valid, important interviewee I've ever had. Think again, he asked you, think about what you just heard today. Think about what we're doing to our kids. And then think about there is a path to salvation. There is a path to healing. And it's not the woke path. It's the faith-based, God-based path, but not alone. We need more. And we need to change this law, this evil law in Rhode Island that prohibits kids from getting the counseling they need. Think about that. First, we corrupt them, and then we don't allow the proper healing. It's unspeakable. It really is. I'm still recovering. I don't know what to think about this, so I'm just going to sign off, and we're going to have to do some kind of follow-up to this. If you stayed with us the whole hour plus here, thank you. This has been an incredible experience for me. I hope it was for you. And you'll be hearing a lot more on this topic and from Michael Menard. So until next game, and what a game this one was. Until next game, Mike Stenhouse out. We'll see you then.